Chapter 1775. Look at what I just said. I just changed the color of the veil and added a few screen flowers and plants. Isn't that enough to make people feel different? Jingyu raised her hand slightly and said, "People and houses are the same. Do you understand what I mean?" "I understand." Luman immediately lowered her head and nodded solemnly. "Ladies, it's not enough to just have good looks. You need to learn the four arts well. Although it's to please men, don't you think that it's more interesting to make men want to conquer you?" Jingyu said again. "Men are like this. What's too easy to get is never easy to cherish. Ladies, you should cherish yourself. It's not a bad thing to have a skill. What do you think?" Jingyu turned to look at Lu Man with slightly arched eyebrows. "Boss is right, I understand." Lu Man slowly nodded in response. "There are too many guests. You go down and greet them. I'll leave from the back door." Jingyu looked at the people walking into the Qin Tower one by one, lowered her head slightly, and turned to say, "Yes, I'll see you off." Lu Man said. Jingyu slightly raised her eyebrows and waved her hand. "No need. I'll go back myself," Jingyu said as she put on her veil and turned to walk down the stairs. Xing 15 followed behind Jingyu. Xing 15 was already uncomfortable when he entered the Qin Tower. It was fine before the door was open, but now that the door was opened, Xing 15 immediately lowered his head. Jingyu tilted her head and looked at Xing 15. Seeing him like this, she found it funny and said, 15, have you never been to a brothel before?" "Madam, Master has very high standard for the guards. He definitely doesn't allow them to casually touch women. How would I dare to come?" Xing 15 heard Jingyu's words and instantly frowned. He said in a conflicted tone, "Furthermore, I'm not interested in these women." 15, it sounds like you're full of disdain." Jingyu immediately stopped in her tracks and looked at Xing 15. "Why don't we take a look? If you can make the ladies here dance for you, I'll agree with your disdain." "Madam." Xing 15 immediately frowned, his eyes filled with conflict. "Lu Man," Jingyu smiled faintly and called out loudly, "Boss, do you have any other orders?" Lu Man heard Jingyu call and quickly went up to ask. "It's not a big deal. Our young master doesn't trust the ladies of our Qin Tower. I'll make a bet with him. If he can make the ladies of the Qin Tower dance for him, I'll be convinced." Jingyu raised her eyebrows slightly and said calmly, "Go and find a lady who's good at dancing." Jingyu's words were very tactful, but Lu Man still understood. "The young master beside Jing, you must have said something about the ladies in the brothel, or maybe he was full of disdain for the ladies here." Lu Man heard Jingyu's words, and a faint smile appeared in her eyes. She bowed and turned to call out, "Meng Fei, boss, big sister man." The young lady sitting at the side heard the call and quickly walked over. She bowed slightly to Jingyu and Lu Man. "This young master wants to see a dance. Can you dance?" Lu Man looked at the young lady in front of her indifferently and asked. When a young lady called Meng Fei heard Lu Man's words, she turned her gaze to 15th Xing and sized him up curiously. Chapter 1776. "Sir, it's not impossible for you to watch the dance. If you can play chess with me and win 3 rounds, I'll dance for you." Meng Fei smiled at 15th Xing. "You want to compete with me?" 15th Xing's eyes widened in shock when he heard Meng Fei's words. "Of course. Do you think Qin Lu's dance is something you can watch whenever you want?" Meng Fei smirked in disdain. "Don't pay for it. We girls don't lack money. If you don't dare to compete, then go elsewhere." Meng Fei tilted her head as she spoke, looking as if someone had wasted her time. Immediately, 15th Xing was furious. They were here to have fun. How could someone talk to them like that? "Stop right there." 15th Xing stepped forward and stared at Meng Fei. "Let's compete. I'm a man. Why would I be afraid of a little girl? 10 taels of silver for a round. Please." Meng Fei looked at 15th Xing curiously. She couldn't believe that 15th Xing knew how to play chess. Jingyu was curious too. Didn't all shadow guards kill people? How do they know how to play chess? "You're so evil. You need money to play chess?" 15th Xing's heart ached when he heard the price. "You're occupying my seat and blocking my guests. Don't pay. Who told you to sit there for free?" Meng Fei retorted bluntly. 15th Xing's face darkened, but he paid the money in resignation. After the game was set up, Jingyu and the others followed curiously. Seeing 15 Xing sit down properly, Meng Fei sat down across from him. She bowed politely to 15 Xing and started the game. Jingyu couldn't understand Go. If it was Gamoku, Jingyu could play. She didn't know a thing about Go. Jingyu didn't understand this, but the others did. While they were playing chess, they attracted the attention of the people around them. At the beginning, 15th officer was still calm, but he didn't expect that he would start to lose in the end. Jingyu looked at 15th Xing's frown and smiled faintly. The discussion around them grew louder. 15th Xing's frown deepened. The game ended much faster than Jingyu had expected. It was obvious that 15th Xing had underestimated his opponent and lost. "Sir, you've lost." Meng Fei calmly put down a chess piece and looked at 15th Xing. 15 stared at the chessboard and frowned. He looked up at Meng Fei and said, "I underestimated you." Again. 10 taels of silver per round. Please, young master. Meng Fei said the same thing. 15 Xing took it out without a second thought. Jingyu sat at the side, bored. She ate her snacks and looked at the spectators in silence. But everyone knew that it was best not to speak while watching the game. They all stood at the side and watched quietly. In the second round, 15 Xing won by a narrow margin. Young master's Go skills are superb. I'm very impressed. You won 3 rounds, and I'll dance for you. Do you want to continue? Meng Fei didn't look like a loser at all. She was still smiling at 15 Xing. Since I'm accepting the challenge, I naturally can't give up halfway. Please, Mississippi. Xing 15 didn't even realize that after these 2 games, his tone towards Meng Fei had become more courteous. Chapter 1777. The second round was still won by 15th Xing. With 2 consecutive victories, 15th Xing was naturally proud of himself. He thought that he could win the next round, but the more he thought about it, the less likely he was to win. Obviously, 15th Xing lost the 4th round. At the start of the 5th round, 15th officer finally began to figure out what he needed to do. Every move he made was carefully thought through. He played the game to the fullest. His meticulous look made Meng Fei cover her mouth and smile. When 15 Xing raised his head, he saw Meng Fei's smile. This beauty smile really made everything in the world pale in comparison. 15 Xing's face immediately turned red. Just as he was about to play, he saw Meng Fei reach out and block his hand. "Young master, have you thought about how you should play? Don't mess up your mind." Meng Fei gently reminded 15th Xing. 15th Xing's hand that was holding the chess piece trembled. He looked at the game in front of him and smiled helplessly as he slowly placed his piece. "Miss, you are so proficient in chess. I admit defeat." 15th Xing sighed deeply. For the first time, he felt the deep terror in this game. He bowed slightly to Meng Fei. "My skills are not good enough. Thank you for your guidance." Meng Fei humbly bowed in greeting. Her every movement had the demeanor of a noble. It was really hard to imagine that such an intelligent and well-mannered woman would actually be in this brothel. 15th Xing stood up. When he turned his head, he saw that on the other side, there were men and women reciting poems or composing music together or writing. The scene here was so shocking. This was really the filthy brothel that those people talked about. How is it? What does our 15th young master think about this? Jingyu stood beside 15th Xing and asked calmly, "Madam, I admit defeat." 15th Xing heard Jingyu's words and looked at Jingyu with eyes full of admiration. He sighed deeply and said, "In my life, I only admire my master. Now it seems that I need another one. This Qin Lu really lives up to his name." "Young master, please wait a moment." Just as Jingyu and Xing Shiwu were about to leave, Lu Man walked over from the side and said, "Meng Fei is willing to give you a dance to thank you. She wants to teach you how to play chess. Would you do me the honor of watching?" Hearing Lu Man's words, 15th Xing was stunned. He turned to look at Jingyu. This Qin Lu song and dance isn't something you can watch whenever you want to. Let's go. I'll take you to have a look. Jingyu winked playfully at 15th Xing. When 15th Xing heard Jingyu's words, he immediately frowned in curiosity. Could there be something special about this song and dance? Weren't all songs and dances the same? After experiencing the chess game just now, 15 Xing had learned his lesson this time. He silently agreed to it. Lu Man brought Jingyu and 15 Xing to the room. The room was elegantly designed and had a light fragrance. It wasn't too pungent, but it wasn't too smoky either. It was just right, making the people around them smile. Jingyu looked at 15th Xing's gentle face. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She held her glass of water and drank it. 15th Xing sipped the wine in his glass, and his eyes lit up with joy. The wine tasted really good. Chapter 1778. 15. Don't drink too much just because it's good. This wine is very intoxicating. Jingyu saw 15's actions and reminded him thoughtfully. Don't be fooled by the fact that this wine doesn't have the smell of wine. It's actually covered by the fragrance of the flowers. The second ultimate of the Qin Pavilion is this strange flower wine. Drinking the flower wine and watching the beauties dance. 15. This is something that many people yearn for even in their dreams. Madam, 15 heard Jingyu's words and frowned. Don't worry, I won't tell Xiao Chun. Jingyu winked mischievously at 15. 15 sighed deeply in his heart. Even if she didn't tell him, his master would find out. Just as 15 and Jingyu were talking, the sound of musical instruments rang out in the room. 15 sat up slightly and turned his head to look. However, he was attracted by the lithe figure in the middle of the stage. Unlike her previous gentle and lively appearance, Meng Fei, who was wearing a bright red dress, danced her body under the music. A very pleasant song was heard, and 15th Xing stared at the dancing figure without blinking. Perhaps he wasn't looking at the dance, but at the indescribable poignant story behind the dance. When the song ended and the music ended, the dancing figure on the stage slowly calmed down. Everything was silent, but at this moment, 15th Xing's heart couldn't calm down for a long time. It wasn't until Jingyu clapped beside him that 15th Xing came back to his senses. I've embarrassed myself. Meng Fei bowed slightly and went down to change out of her dance costume. Jingyu looked at 15, who looked lost. She pursed her lips and smiled. She asked slowly, how is Qin Lu's song and dance? It's the only one in the world. 15 looked deeply at Jingyu and said, now, do you dare to underestimate this brothel? Jingyu smiled and asked 15 again. This subordinate does not dare to underestimate, madam. Xing Shiwu had long heard of Jingyu's deeds in the imperial city. Initially, he thought that she was just a woman who was casually passing time. But today, he had truly learned something new. This admirable chess skill and this soul-stirring dance song really made 15th Xing admire him from the bottom of his heart. Jingyu sat at the side and ate her desserts elegantly. She looked at 15 Xing and asked calmly, actually, all of this was calculated step by step. Do you understand now? Scheming? Were you plotting? Upon hearing Jingyu's words, 15 Xing was slightly taken aback and asked, the human heart. Jingyu arched her eyebrows and smiled. She looked at 15th interrogation officer and said with a rare calmness, this scheme is based on a person's heart. From a moment you agreed to accept the challenge, it has been a shocking scheme. This subordinate does not understand. 15 Xing frowned slightly and looked at Jingyu with sincerity. Meng Fei's sentence, could it be that you don't dare to accept the challenge, was a common provocation. She also said, I can't dance for you for free. If you want to watch, you have to win 3 rounds. If you want to play chess, then go elsewhere to watch. She raised her own status for no reason. Our Qin Lu's ladies do not lack money. That was a form of disdain. How could you endure such words? Naturally, you agreed. After you agreed, I told you that it was 10 taels per round. I told you before that you need to win 3 rounds. This means that if you want to watch, you have to fork out the 30 taels. Not to mention that there are also people who lose. Ladies usually earn money based on their mood. You only spent 50 taels today. Chapter 1779. Jingyu's words hit the nail on the head. When you were playing Go, I caught on to your weakness of underestimating your opponent in the first round. Did you think that the girls in this brothel would have any real skills? Actually, that's not the case. These girls were all carefully selected. Every one of them is good at different things. They will develop their strengths and make up for their shortcomings. Losing to you in the second and third round was to give you the heart of a victor. It made you think that you would definitely win the third round. It might as well be said to be giving you a piece of fat meat that you could reach with your hand. However, when you really continued, you discovered that this distance that you could reach with your hand was actually a bottomless abyss. That's why you lost. In your fifth round, Meng Fei smiled at you seductively. How could a normal man not be tempted by the smile of a beauty? Moreover, this woman was well-educated and well-versed in Go. You already saw her as an ordinary woman and even admired her. With so many things added together, I don't believe that you wouldn't be tempted. Jing Yu looked at Xing Shiwu with interest and said, if I hadn't asked Lu Man to stop her, this Miss Ming Fei would have had the ability to make you bankrupt today. Do you believe it? Hearing Jing Yu's "do you believe me?" 15th Xing instantly felt a chill down his spine. It had only been a short period of time, and he hadn't noticed anything at all. He was even enjoying it. As he dissected Jing Yu's words and thought about what he had just experienced, he suddenly shuddered violently. Madam, I admit defeat. This time, Xing Shiwu was really convinced. How could these girls not lack money? They were simply trying to kill you. Even if you really lost, it wouldn't be a big deal. Wasn't it just a dance? After this dance, it wouldn't make people look down on you. Instead, they would be deeply shocked. Xing Shiwu felt this way now. After listening to Jing Yu's words, he suddenly realized how deep Qin Lu's waters were. The slight contempt in his heart disappeared. He sighed deeply and felt that following Madame had really broadened his horizons. Your servant Meng Fei greets boss and young master. After Meng Fei came back after changing her clothes, she bowed slightly to Jing Yu and Xing Shiwu and said politely, no need to be so courteous, have a seat. Jing Yu smiled and looked at Meng Fei. She seemed to be in her teens, but she was already so beautiful and intelligent. Jing Yu was very satisfied. How long have you been in Qin Tower? Jing Yu narrowed her eyes as she watched Meng Fei sit down. I have been in the Qin Tower for 3 months, Meng Fei said happily. Today is the first time I have seen boss. Not bad. It's only been 3 months, and you're already so powerful. Jing Yu nodded and smiled. She turned to 15th Xing and said, do you see that? She's only been in the Qin Tower for 3 months. The other girls have been in the Qin Tower for years. If I use this to deal with you, you'll lose your clothes here today. Jing Yu smiled happily. Hearing Jing Yu's words, 15th Xing's face turned red and he sat at the side, not daring to say anything. Next was Meng Fei talking to 15th Xing. Although Meng Fei was a little girl, she was very talkative. Look at how she talked to 15th Xing. She didn't seem to have stage fright at all. Chapter 1780. Jing Yu was amazed by the way he answered so fluently. This Qin Lu was getting better at teaching people. Not bad. Jing Yu raised her eyebrows slightly. When she walked out of Qin Lu's door, she saw that 15th criminal interrogation officer was still thinking about everything that had just happened. Jing Yu instantly felt an extreme sense of satisfaction. Even Xiao Chen's secret guards couldn't stop her. Qin Lu was getting better and better. It wasn't just a woman's beauty that captivated men. Her talent was also amazing. Jing Yu sat in the carriage and yawned. She didn't realize that she had been busy for so long. It was already so late. It was really strange. Xiao Chun actually didn't send anyone to look for her. When Jing Yu returned to the prince's residence, she found out that it was because Xiao Chun himself hadn't returned yet. Where did the 9th emperors go? Jing Yu frowned slightly and asked Yin Xiao, who was beside her. The 9th emperors is attending a palace banquet in the palace and hasn't returned yet. Yin Xiao quickly replied. Jing Yu heard Yin Xiao's words and frowned slightly. She recalled that Hellion Theo was coming today. It was normal for there to be a palace banquet in the palace. It was good that he hadn't come back yet. If he came back and knew that she had come back so late, he would definitely nag again. Jing Yu pursed her lips slightly as she thought. She turned around and returned to her room. After taking a shower, she fell asleep. After a tiring day, Jing Yu was already very tired. However, Jing Yu hadn't slept for long when she heard the sound of the door opening and the rustling sound of clothes being taken off. It was obvious that Xiao Chun had returned. Jingyu continued to sleep. She was really tired and couldn't be bothered with Xiao Chun. However, when Xiao Chun lay on the bed and leaned over, Jingyu could clearly smell the strong smell of alcohol on Xiao Chen's body. There was also a fragrance. This fragrance, Jingyu instantly opened her eyes and looked sideways. She saw Xiao Chen's slightly red cheeks. What made Jingyu most unbearable was that there was actually a faint red thing on Xiao Chen's collar in his half-drunk state. Jingyu leaned over and sniffed. Her expression instantly changed. It was obviously a woman's rouge. Who was so bold to peek at her man? Jingyu's expression instantly changed. She frowned fiercely. Almost without thinking, she kicked Xiao Chun, this drunkard, off the bed. When Xiao Chun saw Jingyu leaning over, he wanted to reach out and hug Jingyu. However, he didn't expect that before he could do anything, he would roll under the bed. Immediately, he sobered up a little. Xiao Chun frowned slightly and called out to Jingyu in confusion. Who is your Jingyu's face was full of coldness. She looked coldly at Xiao Chun and said, "What did you do tonight?" When Xiao Chun heard Jingyu's question, he sighed deeply and said, "A small banquet in the palace. I just followed the emperor and drank a few cups with Hellion Theo." Jingyu slowly narrowed her eyes. She looked at Xiao Chun and said, "There were a lot of female guests at this banquet, right?" "No," Xiao Chun said without thinking. You know me, who knows you? You bastard." When Jingyu heard Xiao Chen's words, she became even angrier. She reached out and hit Xiao Chun. Her eyes were full of anger. She reached out and grabbed Xiao Chen's collar. She said coldly, "If there were no female guests, then how do you think this red mark came about?" Chapter 1781. Could it be that Xiao Yuling and Hellion Theo rubbed themselves on it? Do the two emperors know how to put on makeup? Jingyu's pair of golden-green eyes were practically on fire. Xiao Chun was slightly stunned. He reached out and tugged at his collar. When he really saw the red mark, his face instantly turned pale. He frowned slightly and thought for a moment. What exactly happened in the palace? After thinking for a long time, Xiao Chun really couldn't think of when his clothes got stained. However, when he turned to look at Jingyu, it was as if he didn't give Jingyu an explanation today, this matter wouldn't be over. Xiao Chun was thinking very hard. Jingyu saw Xiao Chen's appearance, and her eyes were suddenly filled with a layer of mist. It was said that when a woman was pregnant, the chances of a man having an affair were the highest. Jingyu originally didn't believe it, but now it seemed that Jingyu really had to guard against it. "How is it? You have nothing to say." Jingyu glared fiercely at Xiao Chun and said, I really don't know when I got stained." Xiao Chun really couldn't remember. He said quite sincerely to Jingyu, "It's natural for there to be dancers at the banquet, but I swear that I definitely didn't touch a single one of them." The coldness in Jingyu's eyes deepened. "I really didn't." Xiao Chun felt so anxious for the first time. No matter how he tried to explain, when he thought of the red mark, he immediately felt like he was trying to cover it up. Jingyu obviously didn't believe him. Looking at her, it was as if she wanted to kill him with her gaze. "Get out. Wash yourself properly." Jingyu was really angry this time. She reached out and pulled down the bed curtain, occupying the entire bed by herself. Xiao Chen's expression quickly changed. He silently stood up and went to take a bath. After washing himself back and forth a few times, he finally felt that the smell on his body seemed to have lightened. Xiao Chun wore a thin set of clothes, and there seemed to be a faint mist on his body. He tiptoed to the side of the bed. Looking at Jingyu, who was sleeping soundly, he carefully moved Jingyu's body and slowly lay down beside her. He reached out and hugged Jingyu before he closed his eyes in satisfaction. In fact, Jingyu wasn't sleeping at all. How could she sleep? Feeling the strength of Xiao Chen's hug, Jingyu moved her body slightly to find a comfortable position and close her eyes. Jingyu didn't believe that Xiao Chun would cheat on her. Her man was so outstanding. It would be strange if no one coveted him. Now that someone was thinking about it, Jingyu wanted to see who had the guts to provoke her. Jingyu slowly fell asleep with these thoughts. That night, the sound in the darkness was so clear. She seemed to hear someone shouting at her, telling her to run quickly. But who was it? The fire burned wildly, and the sound of gunshots suddenly rang out. Jingyu trembled and suddenly opened her eyes. Her whole body couldn't help but tremble. What was going on? Why did she dream of the past? Those distant memories seemed to be hinting at something or summoning Jingyu. That strange feeling made Jingyu frown fiercely. Her heart was full of uneasiness. Chapter 1782. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare again? Xiao Qin's worried voice sounded from the side. Jingyu shook her head slightly and didn't say anything. I'll get the imperial physician to take a look at you. Xiao Qin looked at Jingyu's appearance and frowned deeply. He couldn't let her continue like this. It was better to let the imperial physician take a look. There's no need, Jingyu said as she raised her head slightly. Xiao Qin could clearly see that Jingyu's golden-green eyes had turned pitch black. Xiao Qin frowned slightly, and his eyes were filled with deep worry. It's nothing serious. I just thought of what happened in the past, Jingyu said very calmly and turned around to get off the bed. While Yin Xiao helped her put on her clothes, Jingyu couldn't help but think what exactly was going on. Jingyu couldn't think of anything and could only choose to give up. When she turned her head, she saw the clothes that Xiao Qin took off last night thrown to the side. The light red mark revealed instantly made Jingyu's eyes turn cold. When Yin Xiao went over to pick up the clothes, she suddenly paused and leaned closer to smell it. Then, her expression changed. She quickly brought the clothes in front of Jingyu and said, Madam, does this belong to Imperial Uncle? But the smell of incense on the clothes doesn't belong to Madam. And the red mark. Yin Xiao's eyes were filled with worry as she looked at Jingyu. I know. Jingyu calmly narrowed her eyes and said, Let's wait and see. This person will send himself to us sooner or later to let us know. Yes. Although Yin Xiao was shocked and worried, she still knew the severity of the matter. She silently lowered her head and didn't say anything. Xiao Qin accompanied Jingyu to eat breakfast and went to the study room. During breakfast, Xiao Qin was very worried. He thought of what happened last night and was afraid that Jingyu would bring it up again today. However, during breakfast, Jingyu didn't say a word about what happened last night. It was as if she didn't care at all. Or rather, it was as if she had forgotten about it. Xiao Qin looked at Jingyu's indifferent attitude and became even more worried. Could it be that she was so disappointed that she didn't intend to ask about it? Xiao Qin thought in his mind, and his heart trembled. No matter what, he had to investigate. Yesterday, he was too muddle-headed because he was too drunk by Hellion Theo. This was the palace. But now that something big had happened, what should they do? This was something that he had to investigate. Thinking in this way, Xiao Qin couldn't delay any longer. After finishing his breakfast, he immediately went to the study room. This scene fell into Yin Xiao's eyes. Her heart suddenly thumped hard, and she exclaimed, This is bad. Usually, no matter how busy the Ninth Emperor was, he would take time out to accompany his wife for a walk after breakfast. However, today, he actually left without saying anything. Then, she thought of the clothes she saw this morning. Yin Xiao suddenly felt uncomfortable. She frowned and looked at Jingyu. Looking at Jingyu's indifferent attitude, Yin Xiao felt even more conflicted. Madam, this servant saw that the Ninth Emperor didn't eat much for breakfast. Should Madam send some snacks over? Yin Xiao took a step forward and asked Jingyu considerately. This was obviously a disguised reminder to Jingyu. However, Jingyu didn't appreciate it. Chapter 1783. Really? Why do I feel like he ate quite a lot, even more than me? Jingyu replied very calmly. When Yin Xiao heard Jingyu's reply, she instantly frowned even more. Madam, Yin Xiao had a feeling that she expected better from her. If you want to send it, then send it over, Jingyu said lightly, stood up and said, Help me out for a walk. Yes. Yin Xiao agreed helplessly. If she wanted to send it over, it would be better if Madam sent it over personally. However, this seemed to be impossible, so Yin Xiao turned around and instructed the servant girl to send it over, saying that Madam sent it over. Xiao Qin was in the study room, frowning as he looked at some documents. When he suddenly heard that Jingyu had someone send over some snacks, he instantly frowned with a weird expression. From last night until the next few days, the words, "I'm not happy," were written all over Jingyu's face. But now, she took the initiative to send over some snacks. What was the meaning of this? Showing goodwill? No, no, no. Jingyu was clearly not such a person. Furthermore, this matter was still unclear, and he was still in the wrong. Then, these snacks, Lao-san, do you think that our madam wants to poison this king to death? Xiao Qin stared at the snacks placed in front of him and said deeply, "If it's according to Master's actions yesterday, this subordinate thinks that it's very possible." Xing Yi and Xing Er had already left, and Xing San had successfully been promoted. Now, he was serving beside Xiao Qin. When he heard Xiao Qin's words, he nodded in agreement. When Xiao Qin heard Xing San's words, his brows instantly furrowed into a hemp rope. He sighed deeply and said, "Before this matter is clarified, this king's life must be kept. No matter what, he can't die without knowing the reason. Don't worry about it." Xiao Qin did not eat the plate of snacks, but put it aside. When a servant beside Xiao Qin passed this news to Yin Xiao instantly knew that something big was going to happen. "Madam, this is bad." Yin Xiao ran to Jingyu's side and said agitatedly, "What's wrong?" Jingyu was holding a book drowsily. When she suddenly heard Yin Xiao's words, she instantly woke up with a shiver. She frowned and asked Yin Xiao what happened. "Madam, the 9th Emperors didn't eat the snacks that I sent over," Yin Xiao said with a mournful face. "If he didn't eat it, then let's eat it." Jingyu thought that something big had happened. After hearing Yin Xiao's words, she continued to lie down quietly. But in the past, whenever the 9th Emperors heard that Madame sent something over, he would eat it. He didn't eat it now. Yin Xiao said anxiously, "Maybe Xiao Qin isn't hungry today, so it's normal that he didn't eat it." Jingyu said nonchalantly and continued to read her book. "Madam, why aren't you worried at all?" Yin Xiao was extremely anxious. She looked at Jingyu with a conflicted expression and said, "The 9th Emperors came back so late last night. His clothes still have the scent of another woman's rouge. He didn't accompany Madame this morning and didn't eat the snacks that were sent over." Yin Xiao looked at Jingyu, who was about to cry. She said with a wronged expression, "What if one day he gets a concubine into the residence? What will you do, Madam?" Chapter 1784. After Jingyu heard Yin Xiao's words, she finally put down the book in her hand and looked at Yin Xiao. She looked at Yin Xiao and nodded deeply. "I have seen it today. Your reasoning ability is not bad." "Milady." Yin Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Jingyu's words. She blinked her eyes and looked at Jingyu, her eyes filled with grievance. Jingyu smiled faintly. "Don't worry." Jingyu leaned down again and said, "If Xiao Qin really dares to make me a secondary consort, I will kill him on the same day." "Ha! My man, is he someone to be trifled with?" "But milady." Yin Xiao naturally knew that Jingyu was not someone to be trifled with. However, she still said worriedly, "No matter what, it is best to capture the 9th Emperor's heart." And Jingyu narrowed her eyes and said, "I believe that his heart has always been with me. Now, I'm just curious. Who wants to be the secondary consort of this prince's residence so much?" As Jingyu spoke, she calmly curled up the corners of her mouth slightly. The light in her eyes was so shocking. Yin Xiao looked at Jingyu's appearance and frowned. She could not help but think, 9th uncle is so outstanding. It is normal for someone to have their eyes on him. Okay? Just as Jingyu was reading leisurely, Yin Xiao was thinking hard about how to help Jingyu win back the 9th Emperor's heart. This was really like the saying, "The Emperor is not worried, but the eunuch is worried to death." Now, Yin Xiao was like this. Jingyu was very calm, but Yin Xiao was very anxious. Since the milady didn't care, she, as a servant, naturally had to help. However, just as Yin Xiao was deep in thought, she saw the servant girl who came to inform her that the daughter of the assistant minister had come to visit the imperial consort. Instantly, Jingyu furrowed her brows in confusion. When did she get to know this assistant minister? Yin Xiao, what is the relationship between the assistant minister of the palace and the assistant minister of the secretariat? Jingyu was completely dumbfounded. Jingyu really couldn't understand the ancient official position. The decisions of the provincial lord of the palace secretariat are reviewed by the provincial lords of the palace secretariat. These two lords are both officials of the imperial court. Now that the assistant minister of the palace secretariat has offended the 9 emperors, it is normal for the assistant minister of the palace secretariat to come over and befriend him. Yin Xiao explained to Jingyu in detail. But in the past, those people who wanted to curry favor with the prince's residents were all chased away by Lord Xing, Yi, and the others. Why did they come to the backyard today? Yin Xiao said curiously. This servant knows that Madame doesn't like to socialize. This servant will go and chase them away now. There's no need. Let them in. Jingyu thought carefully for a moment and said indifferently. Yes. Yin Xiao responded. Just as she was about to invite them in, she didn't expect them to run back in after leaving for a while. What's wrong? Where's she? Jingyu looked at Yin Xiao, who ran in alone. She instantly blinked her eyes curiously and asked curiously. She left. Yin Xiao said in a conflicted tone. When this servant went to call her over, young lady Su had already left. She only left behind a handkerchief and said that the 9 emperors lost it last night. She specially came today to return it. When Yin Xiao said this, her entire face turned pale. She handed the handkerchief that was wrapped very delicately in her hands to Jingyu and said, "This servant took the initiative to bring it over." Chapter 1785. Oh, after Jingyu heard Yin Xiao's words, she nodded her head in surprise and said, "See, I told you, this person can't help but send herself to the door." Madam, this... Yin Xiao's eyes were filled with anxiety as she looked at Jingyu. Let me think about it. Jingyu took the handkerchief and said, "This handkerchief indeed belongs to the 9th emperors. I personally chose it for the 9th emperors and told him to carry it with him at all times." Jingyu said as she put the handkerchief to her nose and sniffed it. "It smells exactly the same." Jingyu instantly laughed out loud and said indifferently, "Is this how the assistant minister expresses his goodwill?" This lady really planned everything meticulously. First, she showed the red mark on the collar and then sent the handkerchief to the door. Then, she only left the handkerchief and refused to see the person. First, she provoked me and wanted to test my bottom line. Then, she expressed her goodwill to the 9th emperors and wanted to climb up the ranks. Not bad, Jingyu said with a sigh. If it was someone else, they would probably be provoked by this series of events and immediately go to find their husband to cause trouble. Then, the husband would despise his wife for not trusting him. Originally, it would be fine. However, after this incident, the matter would become more and more serious. Then, there would be some estrangement between the husband and wife. This lady would then have a perfect encounter. Using this kind of gentle, virtuous, and understanding way to help the first madam get out of trouble was simply perfect. With this, it was only a matter of time before this lady was welcomed into the residence. However, how could this kind of situation happen to Jingyu and Xiao Chun? You must be joking with me. Madam, what do we do now? Yin Xiao looked at Jingyu and asked worriedly. It's almost noon. The 9th emperors must be hungry. Let's go and have a meal with the 9th emperors. Jingyu smiled very gently. She turned to look at Yin Xiao and said, "Remember, you have to prepare 9th uncle's favorite dishes." "Yes, this servant will do it right away." Yin Xiao didn't know what Jingyu wanted to do, but since Jingyu wanted to curry favor with the 9th emperors, she had to do her best to help Jingyu. Therefore, she prepared very quickly. Xiao Qin was still dealing with some matters in the study when he suddenly heard that Jingyu had come. He was stunned for a moment and hurriedly went forward to greet her. When he saw Jingyu greeting people and bringing in the dishes, he frowned in confusion. What's this?" Xiao Qin looked at Jingyu and frowned. "Husband, it's almost noon. Don't be busy with work. I've asked the chef to make some of your favorite dishes. You can work after eating." Jingyu's words were gentle and considerate, but look at her smile. It was enough to make people tremble. Yin Xiao was in tears at the side. Madame finally knew how to treat the 9th emperors well. However, Xiao Qin didn't think so. When he saw Jing Yu's series of actions, Xiao Chun shuddered violently. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt extremely creepy. Looking at the dishes that were brought in, he had a very strange feeling. This was the last meal before going to the guillotine. Xiao Chen's entire body tensed up. When he turned to look at Jing Yu, he saw Jing Yu smiling like a flower. What a strong, murderous aura. Xiao Chun tilted his head and silently exchanged a look with Third Xing. Third Xing's face was also slightly pale, and he silently took a step back. Third Xing believed that if it was Jing Yu who poisoned her own husband, she would definitely do it. Chapter 1786. I don't think I'm that hungry. Can I not eat? Xiao Chun asked in a negotiating tone. How can that be? Jing Yu said very gently. How can you stand it if you don't eat? You have to eat. How can he bear? Can you take it? What did he have to bear? It's over. Could it be that he had to be tortured? Xiao Chen's expression instantly turned even uglier. He stood still on the spot and was forcefully dragged over by Jing Yu and pressed onto the chair for Xiao Chun to eat. Xiao Chen turned his head and saw that Jing Yu was eating too. He thought to himself that the food was not poisonous. Otherwise, could it be that Jing Yu wanted to die with him, with the child? Why are you staring at me? Hurry up and eat, Jing Yu said unhappily when she saw Xiao Chun dawdling. Nothing, Xiao Chun replied quietly and started eating calmly. Jing Yu eagerly helped Xiao Chun with the food and other things throughout the meal. This made Xiao Chun even more shocked. Yin Xiao and Xing San, who were serving at the side, couldn't bear to look at him directly while tears streamed down the other's face. They were so touched. When a meal was over, Jing Yu sat at the side comfortably. When she saw that Xiao Chun had also put down his bowl and chopsticks, she raised her eyebrows and asked, Done eating? Done. Xiao Chun nodded slowly. Yin Xiao, pack up all these things. Let's go, Jing Yu said and stood up to leave. She didn't say anything else, as if she was really here to accompany Xiao Chun to eat. Xiao Chun looked at Jing Yu's actions and instantly frowned. That was it. Oh, right. Jing Yu suddenly stopped when she reached the door. She turned to look at Yin Xiao and said, Leave the things that Miss Su brought for the Ninth Emperors. Yes. Yin Xiao naturally knew what Jing Yu was talking about. She silently placed the delicately wrapped handkerchief on the table. Ninth Emperors, how are your memories of last night's banquet? Jing Yu smiled faintly. She looked at Xiao Chun and said gently, This Miss Su even brought the Ninth Emperor's personal belongings to your residence. Ninth Emperors, you have to thank her properly. Jing Yu said happily, then turned around and left calmly. The figure in the distance stunned Xiao Chun. He looked at the handkerchief on the table. Xiao Chun suddenly felt that there was nothing left to live for. He had a million explanations in his heart, but he couldn't say a single one. He felt that the handkerchief was too dazzling. Hellion Theo. He almost gritted his teeth as he said this name. Xiao Chun remembered that this handkerchief was given to Hellion Theo. Now, it was actually given to Jing Yu by a woman. This was really unreasonable. Xiao Chun immediately thought of Hellion Theo. Last night, Hellion Theo seemed to have called out to him when he was walking out of the door. Then, he didn't notice the person in front of him and was bumped into by someone. That person even grabbed his collar. Now, it seemed like that person had put on rouge and rubbed it on his collar. Master, what should we do now? Third Xing looked at Xiao Chun and asked, feeling conflicted. Go to the embassy. Xiao Chun was filled with anger. This Hellion Theo was tired of living, right? Chapter 1787. Yes, Third Xing replied quietly and turned around to make the arrangements. When Xiao Chun arrived, Hellion Theo was still playing chess with someone in the courtyard. He seemed to be in high spirits. When he heard Xiao Chun's arrival, his smile deepened. He turned to look at Hellion Theo and said happily, Isn't this the Ninth Emperor's? Why have you come personally? Hellion Theo asked Xiao Chun with a smile. Xiao Chun looked at Hellion Theo quietly without saying a word. Looking at the Ninth Emperor's, could it be that he was kicked out by the Ninth Imperial concubine? When Hellion Theo said this, his smile was so happy that it almost reached his ears. Hellion Theo, it's all your fault. Xiao Chun gritted his teeth when he heard Hellion Theo's words. Ha ha! Hellion Theo looked at Xiao Chen's deflated expression and laughed even louder. Xiao Chen's face darkened bit by bit. Then, as if he thought of something, he suddenly withdrew his aura and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at Hellion Theo calmly and said, "You have to pay the price for doing something. Hellion Theo, how dare you provoke this king? Are you prepared to pay the price?" Xiao Chan smiled slightly and looked at Hellion Theo calmly. "What do you want?" When Hellion Theo saw Xiao Chen smile, he suddenly felt his hair stand on end. He looked at Xiao Chan warily and asked, "You will know very soon. This is this king's little gift for you." The corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up slightly. He came quickly and left quickly. Hellion Xiao was left frowning on the spot. He even began to ponder. What kind of weakness did Xiao Chan have on him? However, after thinking about it, he couldn't think of any problem. He could only frown helplessly with a hint of doubt in his eyes. The first thing Xiao Chan did when he returned to the palace was to tell Jingyu everything that happened. He repeatedly assured her that it was all Hellion Theo's doing and that it had nothing to do with him. He begged Jingyu to give him a way out. "Are you done?" Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun and asked calmly with narrowed eyes. "I'm done." Xiao Chun nodded silently. Jingyu stared at Xiao Chun for a long time before she asked seriously, "What about the handkerchief?" "I didn't even touch it. It was burned." Xiao Chun said sincerely again, You must believe me. When did I say that I don't believe you?" Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen's nervous face and didn't know why she suddenly found it funny. She reached out and pinched Xiao Chen's face and said, "I knew that someone must be behind this, but I didn't expect this boring person to be Hellion Theo." "Well," after Xiao Chun heard Jingyu's words, he said seriously, "I will make Hellion Theo regret it." "Huh? What are you going to do?" Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun curiously and asked. "Nothing. I just heard that Feng Maching seemed to be around recently, so I asked him to come to our palace as a guest." As Xiao Chen spoke, he turned his head and smiled brightly at Jingyu. After hearing Xiao Chen's words, Jingyu widened her eyes in surprise. Then she sighed and said, "This move of yours is really amazing." Chapter 1788. It's good that you're not angry. I was afraid of you, Xiao Chun said as he reached out and hugged Jingyu. "Do I look like such a stupid person?" Jingyu stared at Xiao Chun with disdain and said, "If I were really that stupid, this palace would already be filled with concubines." "How could that be?" Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu and said seriously, "This king has you, and that's enough. You're better off with your words." Jingyu was very happy with Xiao Chen's words. She slightly raised her eyebrows and leaned into Xiao Chen's embrace with incomparable satisfaction. In ancient times, it was very normal to have multiple wives and concubines. However, Jingyu had always been determined to only have Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun absolutely could not marry anyone else. If he married anyone, she would kill them. If she couldn't, then she wouldn't want Xiao Chun. She was so domineering and possessive. Jingyu didn't feel that there was anything wrong with her. Jingyu also knew that on the surface, people said that the 9th Emperors and the 9th Imperial Concubine were a match made in heaven. However, behind their backs, they said that Jingyu was a jealous woman. Jingyu didn't care about these kinds of words. It was just some rumors. These people didn't dare to say it in front of her. They were really useless. "Then what do you want to do with this, Miss Su?" Jingyu slightly narrowed her eyes and looked at Xiao Chun. Her words were full of warning. Xiao Chun didn't care and said, "What does she have to do with this king? You can say whatever you want." "Really?" Jingyu glanced at Xiao Chun and said, "I sent people to ask around. The daughter of the assistant minister, Su Shi, is famous for being a beauty. Aren't you moved by the 9th Emperors?" Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu and said happily, "When did you have so little confidence in your own appearance?" "Humph." Jingyu coldly snorted and turned her head away. She said coldly, "You think you're beautiful and dare to seduce my man. You're really tired of living. Madam, you can do whatever you want," Xiao Chun said calmly. Jingyu nodded in satisfaction. She was quite satisfied with Xiao Chun's attitude. After Xiao Chun left, Jingyu lay on the bed comfortably. Then, she heard Xing San say that the 9th Emperors had entered the palace. This was obviously the hospitality that Hellion Theo should receive when he came to the Tokyo. Xiaochen really pushed Jing Yu's restaurant out. The imperial edict was immediately passed down. When the news of the banquet being held at Qianlai restaurant spread, the entire imperial city was in an uproar. Everyone went to buy the best clothes, the best jewelry, and dressed up beautifully. One had to know that the people who appeared this time weren't just the emperors of the two countries. The three people who appeared were also extraordinarily handsome. No matter which of them took a fancy to her, it would be worth it. She could become a phoenix at any time. Which of these ladies wouldn't care? These men all wanted to use this banquet to build connections. This was a rare opportunity to see so many people. Who knows, this might be a good chance for them to secure a good future for themselves. In any case, the imperial city was really in an uproar. On the other hand, Jing Yu's side didn't have any movements at all, until a piece of news reached Jing Yu's ears. Imperial concubine. Everyone outside is saying that the 9th Emperor is going to take in a concubine. It's said that it's the daughter of the assistant minister, Miss Su Shi. They even said that the token of love has been exchanged. Yin Xiao looked at Jing Yu angrily and said, "It's all because of that handkerchief." Chapter 1789. This woman really uses all sorts of dirty tricks. Jing Yu frowned. Yin Xiao looked at Jing Yu and said helplessly, "What should we do? What else can we do? Let's just wait and see." Jing Yu took a sip of hot water and said with a slight smile, "I'd like to see what other tricks this person can play." When Jing Yu and Yin Xiao were talking, a voice came from the other side, saying that someone from the palace had come. The Empress had summoned the 9th imperial concubine to the palace. When the Empress issued the decree, Jing Yu was stunned. What happened to Lu Miaoqiu? Why did the Empress summon her into the palace? Jing Yu didn't think much of it. She changed into a set of decent clothes and followed the people into the palace. Yin Xiao naturally wanted to follow behind Jing Yu. Everything in the palace was the same. Jing Yu went straight to Lu Miaoqiu's palace and saw Lu Miaoqiu lying on the bed with a big belly. She looked so relaxed that it didn't seem like anything had happened. Jing Yu bowed slightly to Lu Miaoqiu. Lu Miaoqiu waved her hand and dismissed the servants. She quickly summoned Jing Yu to her side. "Miaoqiu, what happened? You issued a decree to summon me into the palace?" Jing Yu asked Lu Miaoqiu curiously after seeing the servants leave. "You still ask me what happened?" Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jing Yu helplessly and said, "The news outside the palace has already reached my ears. Didn't you hear anything?" "Hear what?" Jing Yu looked at Lu Miaoqiu in confusion. "Of course it's the news outside. Tell me, what's going on with the 9th imperial uncle wanting to take in a secondary consort? What's up with the assistant minister's daughter?" Lu Miaoqiu frowned and asked Jing Yu, "Oh, you call me here because of this?" Jing Yu lowered her head helplessly and said, "I thought something big happened. If this isn't a big deal, then what is?" Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jing Yu's indifferent expression and frowned. "Xiao Chun and I both know about this. It's just some cheap tricks." Jing Yu curled her lips and said calmly, "It's ridiculous for her to want to enter the prince's mansion with these tricks." "What's Xiao Chen's attitude?" Lu Miaoqiu asked with a frown after hearing Jing Yu's words. "He told me to do whatever I want," Jing Yu said calmly. Lu Miaoqiu sighed in relief and said deeply, "I thought the 9th emperors wanted to take a concubine while you were pregnant. How could that be?" Jing Yu shook her head and laughed. "Women are always meddlesome when they're pregnant." Lu Miaoqiu lowered her head helplessly and said, "Now that I'm pregnant, all the concubines in the palace are trying their best to please the emperor. I've been worried sick during this period of time." Lu Miaoqiu said helplessly with her head lowered. "Why did I hear that the emperor only stayed overnight in your palace? He didn't go to anyone else's palace. Occasionally, you would only go for a meal or play chess. Aren't you satisfied?" Jing Yu said with her eyes wide open when she heard Lu Miaoqiu's words. Chapter 1790. If it wasn't for my brilliant methods, I wouldn't have known which vixen had seduced His Majesty, said Lu Miaoqiu unhappily. Huh. When Jing Yu heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, she suddenly laughed out loud. What do you plan to do with sushi? She doesn't look like someone who can be worry-free. Lu Miaoqiu poured Jingyu a cup of water and asked, "How did this girl set her eyes on your ninth empress? Tell me." Jingyu helplessly shook her head and told Lu Miaoqiu everything. After hearing Jingyu's words, Lu Miaoqiu suddenly laughed. She helplessly sighed and said, "Her methods really aren't that good. She's far worse than I was back then." What interesting things did the Empress and Ninth Imperial Aunt talk about? What happened back then? As Lu Miaoqiu and Jingyu were talking, they heard Xiao Yuling's joyful voice. Jingyu and Lu Miaoqiu were slightly surprised, but they both stood up and bowed. "There are no outsiders here, so there's no need to be so courteous. Sit." Xiao Yuling casually waved her hand. "Your Majesty, why do you have the time to come here today? Aren't you usually playing chess with Wang Marin?" Lu Miaoqiu said with a fake smile. "Ahem." Xiao Yuling lightly coughed and calmly said, "Ninth Imperial Aunt still hasn't answered my question. Your Majesty, I was just talking to the Empress about what happened when your Majesty was still the Crown Prince." Jingyu lightly smiled and replied. "She said that the Empress put in a lot of effort to make your Majesty happy. Is that so?" When Xiao Yuling heard Jingyu's words, she turned to look at Lu Miaoqiu and said with a sour tone, "Why didn't I feel that the Empress was trying to make me happy? Your Majesty, are you saying that I'm an eyesore? Then this concubine will have to properly apologize. I did not serve you well in Fengqi Palace. Please punish me, Your Majesty. This concubine is pregnant and cannot serve Your Majesty. Your Majesty should find Beauty Wang to serve you." Look, here she goes again. When Xiao Yuling saw Lu Miaoqiu's actions, she immediately clenched her teeth. How was she trying to please her? She was simply making things difficult for her and pushing her away with all her might. Jingyu instantly burst out laughing. "Your Majesty, the Empress has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She doesn't know how to speak. In her heart, she wishes that the Empress was the only one in your harem. That way, the Empress won't be able to sleep at night and worry that your Majesty will be snatched away." Jingyu's words were beautiful and reminded Xiao Yuling. When Lu Miaoqiu heard Jingyu's words, her heart warmed slightly. However, she helplessly turned her head and knew that the Empress was just saying that she was the only one in the harem. She didn't take it seriously. Lu Miaoqiu laughed and scolded Jingyu. It seemed like she took Jingyu's words as a joke. However, Xiao Yuling seemed to understand Jingyu's meaning. When she sent Jingyu away, she sent her trusted subordinates. She probably wanted to get some information from Jingyu. Jingyu understood Xiao Yuling's meaning and naturally gave her some hints. "Go back and tell His Majesty what he wants to do with the country and the beauty." Jingyu sat in the sedan and said, "If he doesn't make a decision soon, the Empress could go missing in the fire. In the future, she might go missing with the little prince." Chapter 1791. After Jingyu finished speaking, the head eunuch who came to send them off trembled violently when he heard Jingyu's words. He was so shocked that he almost knelt down. When he returned to Xiao Yuling's side, he relayed Jingyu's words to Xiao Yuling. "I see." When Xiao Yuling heard the words, a bitter smile appeared in her eyes. "So this is the so-called power and beauty." Xiao Yuling sighed helplessly. It was obvious that Jingyu knew what she meant. Xiao Yuling wanted to bring those women into the imperial harem to stabilize the court. Why would she sit down with the imperial concubines? However, she would definitely not stay overnight. Xiao Yuling thought that this would be enough to express her feelings. However, from Jingyu's words, it seemed that things were not as simple as she thought. This Lu Miaoqiu wanted to leave, and this time, she wanted to take her child away. No, Xiao Yuling would not allow such a thing to happen. It was enough for something like this to happen once. Jingyu's words were not completely clear, but it was clear enough. After bidding farewell to Xiao Yuling's people, she sat in the sedan chair and walked a few steps. Suddenly, the sedan chair stopped. Jingyu frowned. "What happened?" Jingyu asked with a frown, replying to the ninth imperial concubine. It was an ignorant palace maid who offended the ninth imperial concubine. The eunuch at the side quickly said, "Ninth imperial concubine, Ninth Imperial Concubine. I beg you. Please save our concubine. I beg you. Jingyu originally wanted to ask them to continue. However, before she could say anything, she heard a miserable cry. She immediately frowned. Impudent. Is the ninth Imperial Concubine someone you can offend? A shout sounded. Men, slap her. Drag this lowly servant away. Hold on. Jingyu lowered her eyes slightly and reached out to lift the curtain of the sedan. Her gaze landed on the woman kneeling in front of the sedan with two eunuchs holding her hands. Looking at the palace maid's shabby clothes and face, Jingyu really had no impression of her. Jingyu stepped down from the sedan. She frowned at the palace maid and asked, "Which concubine do you serve?" This servant is the previous imperial concubine's maidservant, the ninth imperial concubine. Please save my imperial concubine. Her imperial concubine. She's about to die. The maidservant's eyes were filled with tears as she looked at Jingyu with pleading eyes. She kept kowtowing on the ground. The previous imperial concubine. When Jingyu heard the maidservant's words, she frowned deeply and said, "You're Fu Ruoqing's maidservant?" "Yes. This servant is." The maidservant's tears kept falling as she said, "This servant knows that her imperial concubine let down the ninth imperial concubine. However, her imperial concubine is now in this state. This servant begs the ninth imperial concubine, please save her imperial concubine. This servant is willing to do anything to repay you. I'll do anything you ask of me." When Jingyu heard the maidservant's words, she frowned deeply. She looked at the lowly maidservant kneeling on the ground and sighed. "Lead the way." After saying this, Jingyu sat back down on the sedan. She thought about how Fu Ruoqing protected Xiao Chun in the palace. This person had done too much for Xiao Chun, but so what? The sedan stopped in front of a shabby palace gate. Jingyu stood in front of the gate and was slightly stunned. This must be the Tokyo-esque cold palace. Chapter 1792. Fu Ruoqing lived in such a dilapidated place. Looking at the place, it was obvious that it had been in disrepair for a long time. How could the broken windows and doors block out the cold wind? Jingyu walked in step by step as the eunuchs and palace maids beside her carefully guarded Jingyu. She had just walked a little closer when she heard the sound of coughing coming from the bed in the room. The palace maid wanted to go in and report, but was stopped by Jingyu. She took a small step forward and stood in front of the door to see the person in the room. The woman, who was wearing a tattered robe full of patches, held a hairpin tightly in her hand that had been held for an unknown period of time. She rubbed it over and over again, to the point that the hairpin's original luster seemed to have been worn away. There was an unconcealable greenish-black color on her face. Jingyu's gaze fell on Fu Ruoqing's eyes that had been gouged out. That terrifying look made Jingyu's heart beat violently. The palace maid standing beside Jingyu could not help but cry out in fright, immediately attracting Fu Ruoqing's attention. Fu Ruoqing slowly turned her face, revealing an even more frightening appearance. Jingyu clenched her hands tightly. She had never imagined that the radiant and aloof Fu Ruoqing would become like this. In a daze, she still remembered the first time Jingyu met Fu Ruoqing. That arrogant woman had looked at her with a pair of disdainful eyes. At that time, Fu Ruoqing was the most favored person in the palace. Even the empress had to give way to her, and all the ministers in the court had to curry favor with her. How did she become like this now? Jingyu looked at Fu Ruoqing and clenched her hands slightly. She seemed to sigh. That was then, and this is now. Perhaps Fu Ruoqing had long known that this day would come. Lianhua, who is it? Fu Ruoqing asked calmly. Her voice was hoarse, and she coughed from time to time. Looking at her skinny fingers, Jingyu's frown deepened. The maidservant glanced at Jingyu and didn't dare to speak. Fu Ruoqing noticed that no one was answering her, and suddenly fell silent. The surroundings were very quiet. Jingyu, it's you, right? After a long period of silence, Fu Ruoqing suddenly spoke. She seemed to find it funny as she quietly turned her head to the side and said, "I know I'm ugly. Are you here to laugh at me? Cough, cough, cough. Then you've come to the wrong place." Fu Ruoqing's body was filled with weakness. Hearing Fu Ruoqing's words, if it was in the past, she would definitely be overbearing. But now, when Jingyu heard Fu Ruoqing's words, she felt very sad. Your maidservant said that you were dying and begged me to save you. Jingyu stepped into the room and found that there wasn't even a chair to sit on, so she could only stand. When Jingyu's words fell, Fu Ruoqing was slightly stunned. She then lowered her head and said, Xiao Chun didn't come, right? I don't want him to see me in this ugly state. He didn't come. Jingyu's gaze fell on Fu Ruoqing's hand. The hairpin was already very old. It's good that he didn't come. Cough, 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 cough. Fu Ruoqing violently coughed. Her trembling handkerchief was stained with fresh blood, but Fu Ruoqing didn't seem to care at all. Lianhua, that silly girl. I'm already beyond cure. No one can cure me. Fu Ruoqing turned her head slightly, as if she wanted to feel the sunlight one last time. She smiled and said, that day was as warm as this. Chapter 1793. Xiao Chun gave me my first gift. I still remember how happy I was that day. Cough, cough, cough. But how happy I was then is how sad I am now. Fu Ruoqing's body slightly trembled. The person I loved the most was pushed away by my own hands, further and further away. I naively thought, cough, cough, that everything I did was right. Fu Ruoqing slowly placed the hairpin in her hand on the table and calmly said, Can you help me tell Xiao Chun I never betrayed him? When Fu Ruoqing said this, her lips were trembling. She looked so sad and pitiful. Okay. Jingyu slowly nodded. Cough, cough. I can't accept this cough, cough, cough. Fu Ruoqing's coughing became even more intense. Who did this to your eyes? Jingyu's gaze fell on Fu Ruoqing's eyes and calmly asked. However, she couldn't help but feel anger in her heart. Who would be so ruthless to Fu Ruoqing? It was nailing you. Cough, cough, cough. Not long after you left, Nailing Yu and Ning Xiangyuan were in cahoots. I, as an imperial concubine, naturally couldn't be let go. This pair of eyes were dug out at that time. Fu Ruoqing said in a hoarse voice, It really was Nailing Yu who did it. Jingyu fiercely frowned. She suddenly thought, did she let Nailing Yu die too easily? Don't worry, Nailing Yu is already dead. She died at the hands of Xiao Chun, at the hands of her own hidden guards. Jingyu calmly said. After Fu Ruoqing heard Jingyu's words, she was slightly stunned. Then, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha ha! Xiao Chun personally killed Nailing Yu? Ha ha! Cough, cough, this is too funny. Fu Ruoqing laughed too loudly. Her chest shook, and she couldn't help but cough. I really want to see what kind of expression Nailing Yu had when she died. Being personally killed by the man she loved deeply. That kind of feeling must be so painful that she wished she was dead. Ha ha! Retribution! Retribution! This is retribution. Fu Ruoqing laughed maniacally. PFFF. As he laughed, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Your Highness! The maidservant at the side rushed over in horror and supported Fu Ruoqing in shock. With trembling hands and tear-filled eyes, she said, Your Highness, you shouldn't speak. Don't speak anymore. Ninth Imperial Concubine, please save the Imperial Concubine. This servant begs you. Lotus forcefully kowtowed to Jingyu. No need. Fu Ruoqing waved her hand weakly and said, I have lived for so long and experienced so much. I'm already tired of it. Jingyu pursed her lips and looked at Fu Ruoqing calmly. The woman wiped away the blood on the corner of her lips. Her hand trembled as she held the cloth, but she seemed to be trying her best to maintain her elegance. I've said what I need to say. I know what I need to know. Fu Ruoqing quietly looked at Jingyu and said, Lotus is the only person who has always been by my side. If it's possible, can you let Lotus leave the palace after I die? This palace is suffocating. Lianhua, this is the last thing I can do for you. I've become like this, but you've never left my side. It's a pity. I can't give you anything. I have to make you suffer with me. Fu Ruoqing regained her calm demeanor. Chapter 1794. Jingyu, You should leave. Fu Ruoqing slowly turned her head away as if she did not want to look at Jingyu. She gripped her handkerchief tightly and stubbornly said in a steady voice, "The fact that you can come is already a great mercy for me. Let me die with dignity." These were the last words Fu Ruoqing said to Jingyu, and also the last words Jingyu heard. Lianhua cried her heart out, but it was to no avail. Fu Ruoqing's desire to die had long been unquenchable. Perhaps she had endured in the cold palace for so long because she was waiting for someone to come. Jingyu exited the cold palace and suddenly felt a sense of suffocation in her heart. When she saw Fu Ruoqing, she suddenly thought of all the things that had happened in the past. Those incomparably distant memories slowly floated into Jingyu's heart, causing her to feel exhausted. In the Prince Yu mansion, Jingyu collapsed on a soft chair the moment she returned. "Why did the Empress summon you to the palace?" When Jingyu returned to the Prince Yu mansion, the sky had already darkened. Jingyu was lying on a chair, allowing Xiao Chun to massage her feet. When she heard Xiao Chun's question, she turned her head to look at Xiao Chun. "It's all because of you," Jingyu said in a muffled voice. "Because of me? What about me?" Xiao Chun was slightly taken aback and asked with a frown, "Don't pretend. If you didn't provoke the daughter of some assistant minister, would there be rumors about you taking in a secondary consort? The Empress is worried that I have been wronged, so she summoned me to the palace for questioning." Jingyu rudely kicked Xiao Chun and said. Xiao Chun frowned when he heard Jingyu's words. Didn't he already explain the matter clearly? Why was she still talking about it? You don't even need to think to know that the daughter of the assistant minister will definitely attend the banquet outside the palace tomorrow. At that time, everyone will be waiting to see how you and I will react. I want to see how this person is going to play. Xiao Chun fell silent again. He didn't know why Jingyu was so passionate about this matter. If it was Xiao Chun, he would have resolved this matter quickly, but Jingyu wanted to drag out for fun. "Remember, you have to listen to me tomorrow." Jingyu looked askance at Xiao Chun and said, "When have I ever not listened to you?" Xiao Chun said helplessly as he held onto Jingyu's wriggling feet. "That's true." Jingyu nodded in satisfaction. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and silently withdrew her foot from Xiao Chun's embrace. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu in confusion. Jingyu pursed her lips tightly, as if she was thinking about what to say. "What's wrong?" Xiao Chun frowned when he saw Jingyu's expression. "When I left the palace, I went to see someone." Jingyu raised her head slightly to look at Xiao Chun when she said this. Xiao Chun also looked at Jingyu. His expression didn't seem to change at all. Jingyu felt defeated when she saw Xiao Chun's expression. She had kept Xiao Chun in suspense, but Xiao Chun didn't seem to have any reaction at all. This made Jingyu feel very bored. "Aren't you curious about who I went to see?" Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun with a conflicted expression. Go ahead." Xiao Chun nodded calmly. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun's expression and heard Xiao Chun's words. Her mouth twitched violently. Chapter 1795. I went to see Fu Ruoqing. Jingyu sighed deeply. When she mentioned Fu Ruoqing's name, Jingyu stared at Xiao Chun carefully. When Xiao Chun heard this name, he calmly raised his eyebrows at Jingyu and asked, And then? Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun strangely and said, "You returned to the Tokyo for so long, but you didn't go see Fu Ruoqing." "I did," Xiao Chun nodded seriously and said, "I only stood in front of the palace gates for a while before leaving." Jingyu frowned at Xiao Chun and asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Fu Ruoqing is seriously ill. I'm afraid she doesn't have much time left." "I know." Xiao Chun moved his body slightly and successfully leaned against Jingyu's back. He narrowed his eyes and said, "I can't save her, and she doesn't want to see me." Hearing Xiao Chun's cold words, Jingyu didn't know whether to be happy or sad. She softened her body and said, "Fu Ruoqing's eyes were gouged out by nailing you not long after we left. She told me to pass on a message to you. She said she never betrayed you." Jingyu turned her body and looked into Xiao Chun's deep eyes. "I know." Xiao Chun lowered his eyes and hid the emotions in his eyes. "Xiao Chun, after the banquet, go see Fu Ruoqing." Jingyu seemed to sigh as she said, Don't let yourself have any regrets. Okay. When Xiao Chen heard Jingyu's words, he was a bit surprised. He looked deeply at Jingyu and slowly agreed. However, Fu Ruoqing didn't see Xiao Chen, and Xiao Chen didn't say a word to Fu Ruoqing. This was a rare banquet outside the palace, so it was natural for it to be lively. Jingyu had already ordered the restaurant to prepare. The imperial army directly sealed off the entire street. When Jingyu woke up early in the morning, she heard the bustle. Jingyu knew that she was half the main character today, so she had to dress up well. She woke up very early in the morning and dressed herself up very carefully. Xiao Chen looked at her from the side and frowned. The corners of his lips were pursed, and the word unhappy was written all over his face. Xiao Chen, do I look good? Jingyu changed into a very beautiful dress. She had a very dignified hairstyle, a dazzling array of jewelry, and a very beautiful face. She really made people unable to take their eyes off her. Her graceful body, her pair of golden green eyes, which were filled with an icy charm and majesty, were simply perfect. Madam, you dressed up so meticulously just to deal with a little girl? Xiao Chen's face was full of displeasure. Jingyu was so beautiful that he could only look at her. How could he let others see her? I'm fighting for Imperial Uncle's honor. Jingyu reached out and wrapped her arms around Xiao Chen's neck. She said, "What's there to see when I bring such a beautiful madam out? She's just a little assistant minister's daughter." "Madam, you're right." Xiao Chen looked at Jingyu, who seemed to be jealous. He immediately raised his eyebrows and nodded seriously. "Thank you, Mississippi." The imperial city was bustling with noise and excitement. Jingyu felt that it had been a long time since she had attended such a large banquet. After the carriage stopped outside the street, Jingyu and Xiao Chen walked over hand in hand. The crowd was originally lively, but when they saw Xiao Chen and Jingyu, they all quieted down. When they saw Jingyu and Xiao Chen walking over hand in hand, the man was incomparably handsome and the woman was incomparably beautiful. When the two of them stood together, no one would overshadow the other. Chapter 1796. Jingyu had a very appropriate smile on her face. Her golden green eyes casually scanned the surroundings before she turned around and walked into the restaurant. She then sat down at the seat that had been arranged for her. Soon after, the Emperor and Empress arrived. Hellion Theo also arrived. After a few symbolic words, she officially announced the start of the banquet. The entrance and side doors of the restaurant had all been removed. The restaurant now looked like an open-air shed. It was quite unique. While they were eating, there were even people who came out to introduce the dishes to them. Everyone ate happily, and the banquet had reached its climax. After the emperor drank with some important officials, he allowed everyone to do whatever they wanted. He then helped Lu Miaoqiu to serve the dishes. This made all the officials feel very gratified. The love between the emperor and empress was truly a blessing for the harem. It was a blessing for the Tokyo. Hellion Theo could be considered an old acquaintance. He had been a hostage in the Tokyo for more than 10 years. However, at that time, no one thought highly of Hellion Theo. Now that Hellion Theo had become the king of the Northern Pastoral, everyone had to change their attitude and curry favor with him. This humble girl's daughter, Su Shi, greets the 9th emperors and the 9th imperial concubine. Jingyu was starving. While she was happily eating, she suddenly saw the woman who had walked in front of her and Xiao Chen. She was stunned. The show was about to begin. "You may rise," Xiao Chen replied indifferently. There was not the slightest hint of emotion in his voice. "9th emperors, this humble girl just wanted to ask if you had received the handkerchief that you lost previously. This humble girl sent it to your residence." Su Shi's words immediately attracted everyone's attention. There was something fishy about this. A faint smile appeared in Jingyu's eyes as she sized up the woman standing in front of her. She was dressed appropriately. Just by standing there casually, she was a beautiful sight. Her smiling eyes were filled with respect as she looked at Xiao Chen. What's more, this was a face that was as beautiful as a flower and incomparably young. Lu Miaoqiu, who had been paying attention, immediately noticed the commotion. She looked at the food that Xiao Yuling handed over on. shook her head slightly. Then, she focused on the commotion below. When Xiao Yuling saw Lu Miaoqiu's gaze, she frowned and turned her head. So this is the young lady from the Su family? Jingyu sat up straight and narrowed her eyes as she asked calmly. This humble girl, Su Shi, greets the 9th imperial concubine. Su Shi politely bowed to Jingyu once again. Jingyu nodded her head in satisfaction. She narrowed her eyes and asked Su Shi, "You were the one who delivered the handkerchief to your door and left. It was this humble girl." At that time, my mother suddenly fell ill and left in a hurry. I didn't have the time to pay my respects to the 9th imperial concubine. It was this humble girl's fault. When Su Shi heard Jingyu's words, she immediately admitted her guilt. When she spoke, Jingyu didn't have any loopholes to exploit. She was truly a shrewd person. Jingyu found this even more interesting. She slightly curved her lips and said, "That handkerchief was given to the 9th imperial concubine by this imperial concubine. It seems that Miss Su has picked it up. Why don't you take it back and clean it properly? This handkerchief is filled with the smell of incense." The 9th emperors didn't like it. This imperial concubine couldn't stop it, and it was burned by the 9th emperors. I've really let down Miss Su's efforts. Jingyu's lips had a very calm smile. When she said this, Su Shi's expression immediately changed. Chapter 1797. If the 9th emperor doesn't like it, then burning it is because of the handkerchief. However, I hope the 9th imperial concubine doesn't get angry. That handkerchief was given to the 9th emperor by you. Su Shi slightly pursed her lips as she spoke. Jingyu very happily laughed as she said, "This is something that has been defiled by someone else. Even if the 9th emperor didn't burn it, this concubine would still burn it. Don't you think so, Miss Su?" Su Shi was immediately rendered speechless by Jingyu's words. His concubine heard that quite a few people used this handkerchief to make an issue out of it. They said that the 9th emperor and Miss Su exchanged tokens of love. Miss Su, the person who wants to enter the palace as a secondary concubine is you, right? Jingyu really didn't beat around the bush and directly asked this question. 9th imperial concubine, please forgive me. This commoner wouldn't dare. Su Shi didn't think that Jingyu would be so open. The moment she opened her mouth, she was immediately shocked and hurriedly said, "That's right. There's no need to be so nervous." Jingyu slightly curved the corners of her lips as she said, "I just want to know who spread the news that the 9th emperor wants to take a secondary concubine. Empress, how do you think this person should be punished for casually starting a rumor and causing trouble?" Jingyu slightly turned her head to look at Lu Miaoqiu, who was sitting on the high seat, and asked, "There's no need to punish her severely. Just pull out her tongue and make sure she can never start a rumor again." Lu Miaoqiu's indifferent words caused everyone's expression to change. Everyone's gaze fell on Su Shi. "Empress, please forgive me. 9th imperial concubine, please forgive me. This commoner really doesn't know who spread this rumor." Su Shi very fearfully knelt on the ground as she spoke. "You don't know?" Jingyu slightly curved the corners of her lips as she said, "Go, bring her up." "Yes." When the crowd saw this scene, they immediately began to whisper to each other. Their eyes were filled with doubt until they saw a servant girl and a manservant being brought forward. Su Shi's face instantly turned incomparably ugly. The two of them were carrying bags on their backs. From the looks of it, they were about to leave. "Does Miss Su recognize these two people?" Jingyu asked calmly with narrowed eyes. How would I know them? The 9th imperial concubine must be joking." Su Shi forced herself to calm down. She pursed her lips tightly and didn't say a word. Her lowered head made it impossible for others to see her expression. "Really? You know these two people, but these two people know you." Jingyu very calmly curved the corners of her lips. She turned to look at the two people and said, "Repeat what you said to this imperial concubine. Your Majesty, please forgive us. We were only paid to do this. It was Miss Su who gave us the money to spread the news that the 9th emperors wanted to take the daughter of an assistant minister as his concubine. She said that as long as we spread the news, we would be given money to leave the imperial city. The manservant spoke in horror. His eyes were filled with panic as he said, I beg your majesty to forgive us. I beg the 9th emperors to forgive us. You're slandering me. Even at this time, Sushi still clenched her teeth and refused to let go. Jingyu very amusingly curved her lips slightly and said, Miss Su said that you're slandering me. Do you have any proof that your words are true? I do. The servant girl quickly took out a pouch from her bosom and said, This is Miss Su's pouch. At that time, Miss Su lost it. This servant was greedy and secretly hid it. This has the Su family's mark on it. Chapter 1798. Bring it up. Lu Miaoqiu narrowed her eyes and ordered someone to bring the pouch up. Lu Miaoqiu looked at the pouch and her expression changed. She turned to look at Jingyu. Jingyu winked at Lu Miaoqiu. Lu Miaoqiu almost couldn't hold back her laughter. It really is the Su family's item. Sushi, what else do you have to say? Lu Miaoqiu fiercely slammed the table. With a face full of anger, she looked down at Sushi and shouted, This subject's daughter is innocent. Sushi was so frightened by Lu Miaoqiu's shout that her head hit the ground. She panicked and couldn't remember if she had brought the pouch with her that day. Did she really lose it? Impudent. Even your personal item is in the hands of someone else, and you still dare to cry injustice in front of this consort. Your Majesty, look at the good daughter of your respected minister. Lu Miaoqiu angrily grabbed the pouch and refused to let go. Xiao Yuling couldn't see it even if she wanted to. When she heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, she immediately frowned and turned to shout, Where is Su Shurong? This guilty subject deserves to die. This guilty subject failed to discipline his daughter properly. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. When the assistant minister saw the situation in front of him, he knew that this was bad. His face instantly turned pale. He had already advised his daughter that the 9th emperor's wasn't someone she could covet. However, she didn't listen. Now, something big was about to happen. How did you discipline your daughter? Xiao Yuling's eyes were filled with anger. Your Majesty, this matter has hurt this subject's face and the relationship between this subject and the 9th imperial concubine. Please deal with it at your discretion. Xiao Chun, who had been silent all this time, spoke up. If we don't give the world a warning, they will dare to talk about the emperor and empress in the future. The 9 emperors are right. When Xiao Yuling heard Xiao Chen's words, she immediately nodded her head seriously and said, Min, pull out her tongue for me. If anyone dares to casually spread rumors in the future, they will end up like this. Your Majesty, please forgive me. When the assistant minister, Su Shurong, heard Xiao Yuling's order, his face immediately turned pale. In this world, not just anyone can dream about it. Since you dare to scheme step by step, you should be prepared to pay the price. Jingyu sat to one side, her indifferent words coming out of her mouth. Jingyu's eyes were filled with fear. Sushi turned to look at the indifferent Xiao Chun and the frosty Jingyu. Sushi suddenly felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Sushi instantly burst into tears and screamed at the top of her lungs, but no one paid any attention to her. When her voice disappeared, everyone knew that such a good lady had lost her tongue this time. Lu Miaoqiu silently placed the pouch in her hand on the table. Xiao Yuling curiously picked it up and took a look. Her expression instantly became incomparably interesting. She turned to look at Lu Miaoqiu and was speechless. How could there be the Su family's mark on the pouch? It was all nonsense. Your Majesty, this subject concubine is hungry. Lu Miaoqiu looked at Xiao Yuling's expression and obediently reached out to grab Xiao Yuling's arm. She was like a little girl rubbing against Xiao Yuling's arm. Her blinking eyes were filled with a pitiful expression as she pulled Xiao Yuling's hand to rub her round belly. Chapter 1799. Xiao Yuling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Even if she wanted to get angry, she didn't know how to do it. This person's tongue had already been pulled out. Was she supposed to reattach it? Looking at Lu Miaoqiu's rare softening of her temper and the way she leaned over, Xiao Yuling couldn't help but be moved. Jingyu looked at the two people on the stage with a smile in her eyes. She casually sent the two servants away. No matter what, the Su family couldn't sit still and left just like that. The banquet didn't stop because of this small incident. The banquet continued. Jingyu turned her head to look at Hellion Theo and raised her chin provocatively at him. If one came, he would kill one. If two came, he would kill two. It was obvious that such a good girl like Hellion Theo wouldn't be able to live after her tongue was pulled out. Hellion Theo was speechless, as expected of Jingyu. However, for some reason, Hellion Theo looked at Xiao Chun with envy. He silently turned his head and continued to drink his wine, laughing with the crowd. No one took what had just happened seriously. However, the fierce reputation of the 9th Imperial Concubine was probably going to spread, right? Jingyu didn't care. Thinking about it, after experiencing this incident, the butterflies that had been eyeing Xiao Chun would probably stop, right? The banquet ended perfectly. Lu Miaoqiu was pregnant and naturally didn't stay for long. Not long after, she returned to the palace. Jingyu also followed Xiao Chun back to the prince's residence. Lying on her own bed, she felt really comfortable. Just when everyone was idle, Jingyu and Xiao Chun were surprised by something that even they didn't expect came from the palace. What did you say? Jingyu slightly tightened her grip on the storybook in her hand. She frowned and asked Yin Xiao. News just came from the palace. The imperial concubine of the previous dynasty committed suicide by taking poison. Yin Xiao bowed and said. The moment Yin Xiao finished speaking, Jingyu and Xiao Chun widened their eyes in shock. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. When did this happen? Jingyu asked again. It happened last night. When she was discovered in the morning, the imperial concubine had already passed away and couldn't be saved. Yin Xiao tightly pursed her lips and replied. Xiao Chun and Jingyu slowly fell silent, as if they thought of something. In the end, they sighed deeply. Jingyu didn't expect that Fu Ruoqing would die so quickly. She was the imperial concubine of the previous dynasty after all. Xiao Yuling gave her a grand funeral, but she wasn't buried in the imperial mausoleum. Instead, she was buried outside the palace. It looked luxurious and extravagant, but it was just a facade. The imperial mausoleum was forbidden from being buried. It was the previous emperor's decree. It was probably because Xiao Yi had completely given up on Fu Ruoqing or hated her to the core that he didn't want to be buried in the same grave as Fu Ruoqing. Since Fu Ruoqing married out of the Fu family, she naturally couldn't be buried in the Fu family's ancestral grave. Just like that, Fu Ruoqing became a lonely soul with nowhere to go after her death. How sad was that? It had only been 2 or 3 days since the last time they saw Fu Ruoqing. The words spoken by the person dressed in plain clothes were her last words. Beside the coffin, Jingyu quietly looked at Fu Ruoqing, who was lying in the coffin. She was once again dressed in the imperial concubine's robes. It was so gorgeous and moving. She had a thick layer of rouge on her face. It was so white that it was a little frightening. She put on exquisite makeup and dressed up. Chapter 1800. She lay lifelessly in the coffin, but at a glance, she looked like she had fallen asleep. Her eyes, which were full of scars and gouged out, were covered with a black cloth. Xiao Chun stood beside the coffin and quietly looked at Fu Ruoqing. His gaze fell on Fu Ruoqing's hand, which was on her lower abdomen, which was tightly gripping a hairpin. You gave that to her. She didn't want to let go even when she died. Jingyu tilted her head slightly and looked at Xiao Chun as she spoke. Xiao Chun looked at the hairpin silently and didn't say anything. Fu Ruoqing probably didn't want you to see her in such a sorry state. Now that she's dressed up so beautifully, I can finally feel at ease letting you see her. Jingyu sighed emotionally. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun and smiled. I know. Xiao Chun stood silently beside the coffin for a long time. Jingyu also stood beside Xiao Chun silently. Fu Ruoqing was buried in the coffin. Xiao Chun saw her off to the front of the palace gate. He was lost in thought as he looked at the ceremonial procession in the distance. His black robes fluttered in the wind. Jingyu stood not far behind Xiao Chun and watched the scene quietly without making a sound. After a long time, when Jingyu's legs were slightly sore, Xiao Chun's stiff body seemed to move. His eyes were tinged with a faint trace of worry. Why are you still standing here? Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu with a gentle gaze as he asked Jingyu softly. I'm waiting for you. Let's go home together. Jingyu smiled and looked at Xiao Chun indifferently. Her gentle words brushed past Xiao Chun's heart, causing his silent heart to beat slightly. Then, he reached out and hugged Jingyu. Okay, let's go home, Xiao Chun replied softly. After returning from the palace, everything seemed to have returned to normal. Xiao Chun didn't seem to have changed at all. This matter wasn't considered a big deal. Other than the first few days when people were talking about it, there seemed to be no news about it. Hellion Theo was still in the Tokyo. He had nothing to do all day, but at night, he went to the Qin residence. Jingyu seriously suspected that this person was really the Northern Pastoral Emperor. Early in the morning, Jingyu heard that Hellion Theo went back on his word again. Holy shit, is Hellion Theo courting death? He ate, drank, and looked at my young lady without paying. Jingyu was instantly fuming. Go and tell Lu Man that if this Hellion Theo doesn't pay up, leave one of his hands behind. Pay for his debt. Jingyu coldly waved her hand and ordered. The servant who came to pass the message immediately felt his legs go soft. He looked at Jingyu with grievance and said, Boss, he is the Northern Pastoral Emperor. So what if he is the Northern Pastoral Emperor? The Northern Pastoral Emperor dares to go back on his word. Or is he going to go back on his word? Do as I say. Jingyu waved her hand arrogantly. The servant hurriedly complied and turned to leave. Jingyu angrily sat down at the side. In Xiao looked at the departing figure of the servant and then looked at Jingyu, who was lying down again. She sighed in her heart. Only her mistress could be so powerful. Jingyu saw Xiao Chun walking over with someone while she was eating. At first, Jingyu didn't think much of it. However, when she saw who it was, she immediately jumped up. Long time no see. The 9th Imperial concubine has gotten fatter. The man whose clothes were half opened and whose hair was messy was looking at Jingyu with a smile. He didn't even comb his messy hair as he looked at her with a smile. Chapter 1801. Phone watching, don't you know how to speak? What do you mean I'm fat? I'm plump, do you understand? Jingyu was irritated by Phone Watching's words. She glared fiercely at Phone Watching as she spoke. Ha! Phone Watching laughed out loud when he heard Jing use self-praise. His joyful expression made Jingyu frown in confusion. Your Tokyo Imperial City is so lively. I've been wanting to come here for a long time to see what this Tokyo looks like. Phone Watching sighed bitterly. When Jingyu heard this, she immediately rolled her eyes indifferently and sat down again. Welcome to stay here. You'll love it here. Jingyu immediately thought of Hellion Theo the moment she sat down. She rolled her eyes and spoke calmly. Phone Watching didn't know why, but he had a strange feeling when he heard the meaning behind Jingyu's words. Just as he was about to speak, he saw that Xiao Chun was about to chase him away. Phone Watching shook his head helplessly and said a few words with a chuckle before he went off to play. This Tokyo Imperial City was so big. He really had a lot to play with. Xiao Chun sat down beside Jingyu and said, It's time for us to watch the show. Xiao Chun, why didn't I realize that you were so two-faced in the past? Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun and asked curiously. Xiao Chun was speechless. 3 days had passed. Ever since Phone Watching arrived, he had been running around and drinking himself into a drunken stupor. He was too different from the Phone Watching of the past. Jingyu frowned and sighed deeply. I don't know what triggered this child. Maybe it's a good thing. Xiao Chun nodded calmly. Jingyu glanced at Xiao Chun from the corner of her eyes and continued to eat her sour plums. She seemed to enjoy it very much. Just as Jingyu and Xiao Chun were playing under the shade of the tree, they suddenly saw a figure jump down from the roof. He was in a sorry state, and his clothes were in a mess. He even looked behind him. Jingyu and Xiao Chun were both stunned by the sudden appearance of this figure. Their eyes were filled with confusion as they looked at the person in front of them, who had no image to speak of. Hellion Theo, do you think that there's no door to our mansion? Why did you climb over the wall in broad daylight? Jingyu's mouth twitched violently as she looked at Hellion Theo, whose back was facing her, and said with a conflicted expression, Aya, you scare me to death. Hellion Theo was startled by Jingyu's voice. When he turned around, he realized that he had run into Jingyu's courtyard. His eyes instantly widened slightly. I was just about to look for you, Hellion Theo said angrily. Isn't this all because of you? I only went to your mansion to play for a few days. Do you have to send people to chase me all over the streets? Great. Now even the embassy is squatting here. This young master has no home to return to. From now on, I'll be living in your mansion. Hellion Theo said very seriously. Aya, damn it. You're freeloading in my house and not paying, and you're still acting like you're in the right. Jinyu was furious after hearing Hellion Theo's words. Just as she stood up and was about to argue with Hellion Theo, she saw another figure fly down from the roof. Ha, good wine. Good wine. Jingyu's face darkened when she saw the drunkard with one foot almost in the pool and still shouting. Chapter 1802. Xiao Chun, don't you think our house's guards are too lousy? Or is it because we didn't open the door? Jingyu turned her head and looked at Xiao Chun seriously. Why do all these people like to climb over the wall? Third Xing, Xiao Chun called out silently. Yes, sir. Third Xing stepped forward and replied respectfully. In the future, catch all those who don't go through the door and break their legs, Xiao Chun said quietly. Yes, sir. Third Xing replied silently. His gaze fell on Hellion Theo and Foam Watching. No matter who it was, he didn't dare to lay his hands on them. Master, you're too much of a scammer. What a fine wine. Xiao Chun, do you want a cup? Foam Watching walked unsteadily towards Jingyu and Xiao Chun. His face was so red and his body reeked of alcohol when he spoke. Jingyu covered her nose and retreated. You really don't understand the interesting things of the world. Foam Watching shook his head indifferently. When he turned around and was about to leave, he suddenly saw Hellion Theo standing in the distance. He suddenly paused and walked over under the gaze of Jingyu and the others. Where did this little beauty come from? Foam Watching narrowed his eyes and looked towards Hellion Theo. His eyes shook as if he wanted to see clearly, but couldn't. Huh, you look so much like the person I like. Foam Watching said as he reached out and pinched Hellion Theo's chin. Hiss! Jingyu sat at the side and saw this scene. She almost bit her tongue off. What did she just hear? What was Foam Watching doing now? Was he flirting with Hellion Theo? Do you have any idea how shocking this scene is? A man whose clothes were half open reached out and pinched another man's chin. The other man's clothes were disheveled. His beautiful face was full of astonishment as he looked at Foam Watching. He probably didn't expect Foam Watching to be like this. What a beauty. Foam Watching sighed again. Then, under the even more astonished gazes of Jingyu and Xiao Chun, he actually reached out and carried Hellion Theo horizontally. Horizontally? He carried him. What the fuck? At this moment, it was as if 10,000 alpacas were galloping madly through Jingyu's heart. Let's go. Let's go home. Foam Watching smiled as he carried Hellion Theo and turned and walked towards the house. Foam Watching. Hellion Theo completely exploded. Then, under everyone's gaze, Foam Watching, the drunkard, was thrown into the pool by Hellion Theo like a sack, splashing water everywhere. Who are you calling a beauty? Who asked you to drink? Who asked you to get drunk? Drown you. Drink you to death. Hellion Theo angrily threw a few more stones down, then angrily walked away with a red face. If I didn't see wrongly just now, Jingyu said in a daze, Hellion Theo, why is his face red? Could it be that he's shy? Xiao Chun replied from the side. Jingyu was silent. Everyone was silent. Foam Watching, who was in the water, climbed up with his whole body wet. He looked around with a confused expression and asked, why am I in the water? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air fiercely. Jingyu didn't feel good. Why did she have a strange feeling as if she had found out something incredible? As for Third Xing, Yin Xiao, and the rest, They found it funny when they saw Feng Maching's confused look. Chapter 1803. Jingyu went back to her room, deep in thought. She began to think about everything she saw today and suddenly wondered if she had found out a huge secret. Early the next morning, there was a commotion outside. Jingyu and Xiao Chun both looked like they hadn't woken up yet. They leaned against the door and watched Hellion Theo chase after Feng Maching and beat him up. They yawned silently. See, I told you. Feng Maching will be crippled by Hellion Theo the next day when he wakes up. Jingyu leaned against the door and yawned deeply. It's fine as long as he doesn't die. Xiao Chen reached out and pulled Jingyu into his arms. Let's go back and continue sleeping. Clang. As soon as Xiao Chen finished speaking, he saw an unknown object flying towards them. Xiao Chen quickly protected Jingyu and dodged to the side. He looked at the unknown object that crashed into the door. It was a species called Feng Maching. Cough, cough. Feng Maching coughed with difficulty. The corner of his mouth turned green. He looked deeply at Jingyu and Xiao Chun and asked, "What did I do yesterday? Why did Hellion Theo want to kill me as soon as we met?" "Oh," Jingyu said calmly. "You didn't do anything. You just said that Hellion Theo was a beauty, then pinched his chin and teased him." Hiss. Feng Maching's eyes widened when he heard Jingyu's words. "Also, you picked up Hellion Theo. You probably wanted to carry the beauty back to the room, but someone threw you into the pool." Jingyu spread her hands and said, "That's all you did yesterday." "Oh my God." Feng Maching seemed to have imagined that scene, and the corner of his mouth twitched violently. "It's an honor to see that you're still alive." Jingyu looked at Feng Maching and sighed deeply. Feng Maching was speechless. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Hellion Theo chasing after him. Immediately, his entire body trembled. Without thinking, he turned around and ran. Under Hellion Theo's furious roar, he rushed out of the prince's mansion. "Let's run first." TSK, TSK, tisk. Jingyu sighed deeply as she watched them run out one after another. "Don't you think the two of them are a good match?" Jingyu asked happily as she looked at Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun frowned when he heard Jingyu's words. He looked at Jingyu and sighed deeply. "Go back to sleep." Jingyu frowned deeply and quietly went back to sleep. Jingyu didn't know what happened between Hellion Theo and Feng Maching, but the date of Shangwan Linglan's wedding had really arrived. The things that Jingyu had prepared for so long finally came to fruition. Jingyu had prepared everything that needed to be prepared and arranged everything that needed to be arranged. Thus, the grand wedding of the Jinyuan general and Miss Shangwan began. The Jinyuan general's mansion was built to be incomparably grand. Jingyu had someone check it out before, and everything that needed to be prepared was ready. The Have Money chef had also entered the Jinyuan general's mansion and started preparing for the banquet. In the past, Jingyu was the one getting married. Now that she was watching someone else get married, the feeling was really different. Xing Er was Xiao Chen's secret guard. He didn't have parents, so Xiao Chun and Jingyu were his elders. In the main hall, Xiao Chun and Shangwan Hongwen naturally sat at the top. Jingyu stood beside Xiao Chun, and Shangwan Linglan's mother sat on the other side. Chapter 1804. Jingyu originally thought that Xing Yi wouldn't return after going out. She didn't expect him to rush back in the middle of the night. Now, he was wearing a dark red robe and standing at the entrance of the residence to welcome the guests. Xing Er, the groom, had gone to the general's residence to pick up the bride. "I thought that there wouldn't be so many guests today." Jingyu smiled and looked down at Xiao Chun. Don't underestimate the connections between the great general's residence and the great prince's residence. Xiao Chun smiled when he heard Jingyu's words. Jingyu smiled faintly. He was right. Words of congratulations could be heard everywhere. Naturally, Xiao Chun did not go forward to receive them personally. It was all done by Xing San, Xing Shiwu, and a few other secret guards. Looking at the smiling faces of these people, the expression in Jingyu's eyes softened. Xing Wei's marriage, to them, was it the marriage of their own brothers? It was a joyous occasion. Jingyu knew that the wedding procession wouldn't arrive so early. The great general's residence was only a street away from the Jinyuan general's residence. However, Jingyu instructed the sedan bearers and the coachman to remember to circle the streets before returning. Although the wedding was a joyous occasion, Xing Er frowned when he saw the wedding procession walking further and further away. He cupped his hands slightly at the people on both sides of the street, lowered his body, and asked the coachman, "Are we going the wrong way?" "General, the 9th Imperial Concubine has ordered us to take a detour around this street before heading to the general's residence." The manservant was also full of smiles. When he heard Second Xing's words, he quickly replied. Xing Er's mouth twitched when he heard this. He should have guessed that this was Jing Yu's idea. Since the procession was leaving, they could only continue. He couldn't possibly ask the procession to turn back. Xing Er had no choice but to circle the streets with a stiff smile. Then, they stopped at the entrance of the general's residence. The sound of firecrackers rang out. The music was so pleasing to the ears. Jing Yu's brows curved slightly as she looked at the two people walking over with red silk. They were both dressed in bright red robes. Xing Er was always dressed in black. Today, he looked exceptionally handsome in the red robes of the groom on the bed. Jing Yu's lips curved slightly as she listened to the voice of the MC. The procedures were carried out one by one. She had experienced Jing Yu's death back then. Now, she was witnessing Shangguan Linglan's death. This strange feeling made Jing Yu sigh with regret. She felt as though her wedding back then was just yesterday. The bride was sent into the bridal chamber, and the wedding celebration officially began. Countless words of blessings were directed at Xing Er. Xing Er didn't know how to speak, but he didn't reject anyone who offered him wine. Xing Yi, third Xing, and the others helped Xing Er to drink. Jing Yu sat for a while before she went to the bridal chamber. She secretly hid a few snacks and brought them into the bridal chamber. Greetings to the 9th Imperial Concubine. A group of servant girls and nannies knelt down and greeted Jing Yu when they saw her. No need to be so courteous. Jing Yu raised her hand slightly and said, Miss Shangguan is this Imperial Concubine's good sister. This Imperial Concubine has something to say to Miss Shangguan. Wait outside. Jing Yu casually gave an order and walked into the room. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.